Sit back and enjoy Just Hold On, Finding Hope in the Face of Suicide. We see this food, sleep, and water scenario played out in the life of the prophet Elijah. After God had used him in a great way, Elijah got depressed. Guess what the prophet of God wanted to do? Die. Yup. He said, "It is enough now, O Lord, take my life, for I am not better than my fathers." 1 Kings 19:4. Classic, honest human talk right there. What was the solution for Elijah? The angel brought him some food and water, and then God put him to sleep for a while. This happened twice. Then Elijah woke up refreshed and ready to serve the Lord again. You can read the whole story in the Bible in 1 Kings 19:4-14. Another possible reason for depression is a lack of exercise. I'm told that exercise is one of the three things that makes our serotonin levels higher. Serotonin is one of the chemicals in our body that makes us feel good emotionally. According to this study from the National Institute for Health and Clinical Excellence, quote, there are two mechanisms by which physical activity increases brain serotonin. First, motor activity increases the rate and frequency at which serotonin is fired within the brain, resulting in an increase in both the release and synthesis of it. Secondly, regular exercise increases the level of, I knew this before. Okay, well anyways, it's a thing that starts with a T. In the brain, an amino acid used to manufacture serotonin. The exact mechanism is not clearly understood. However, it is clear that aerobic exercise improves mood through increasing brain serotonin levels, end quote. Even beyond all that fancy research, don't we all feel better after we exercise? I know I do. The point is, exercise plays a definite role in contributing to a healthy, happy mind. Thyroid. I've actually had friends who have told me, after extensive testing, that the reason they were always tired, unmotivated, gaining weight, and depressed was because their thyroid was out of whack. Two scenarios could occur if your thyroid gland is not functioning correctly: hypothyroidism and hyperthyroidism. Here are just a few of the symptoms of hypothyroidism: trouble sleeping, tiredness and fatigue, difficulty concentrating, dry skin and hair, and depression. And here are some of the symptoms for hyperthyroidism: anxiety, irritability or moodiness, nervousness, and hyperactivity. We can see that the thyroid gland can cause some real and present mental issues in a person's everyday life. If you are having some of these problems, it might be a good idea to go to the doctor and get your thyroid checked. And while we're on the subject of chemicals in the body that can wreak havoc in the mind, let's not underestimate the power of a hormonal imbalance. The struggle is real. Personal note, for years I have sought for a solution to my PMS. I'm talking about the mental and emotional aspect of PMS, not the physical aspect. After much searching, I finally found a natural solution that works for me. During certain times of the month, I rub some lavender essential oil in full strength onto the bottom of my feet. Warning, this oil is very strong, so I don't suggest you put it anywhere else on your skin as it may cause a rash. I didn't used to believe that essential oils were all that essential until they worked for me. Wow, what a difference. If our hormone levels are out of balance, without the thyroid being to blame, then we need to find the solution preferably through natural methods such as foods, essential oils, etc., that can boost those specific hormones that we are lacking. Is it possible that some of the diagnosis for mental illness is really just a serious hormone imbalance or a thyroid issue? It's just a thought. Could this depression be caused by physical pain? In my research and interviews, I have found that some people who want to take their own lives are those who are just worn down by constant pain in their body. They've been in an accident or have become sick, or some other thing is causing daily excruciating physical pain. They try to get relief through pain medication prescribed by their doctor. Despite the pain medication, this brutal pain lingers day after day. As the pain tolerance to the medication grows higher, the pain meds don't even begin to touch the pain, so they need more. Addiction begins to set in. These people who were previously mentally sound before the accident or sickness are now addicts. This realization in itself can cause major depression. It's a vicious and progressive cycle that they are trying to manage on their own. Because of embarrassment and shame at the question of, how did I get here? The person hides the problem. With no one to talk to, by their own choice, they become isolated and alone. The person can start to feel like they are a burden to their family and to those who care for them. The next thing you know, they are considering a permanent way out. I can totally see how this happens.
I agree.
But suicide is not a reasonable option in this or any situation. Family and friends are there to help. Tell one of them how desperate you have become. I can almost guarantee that they will go into solution mode and do whatever they can to help you get through this. It's imperative that you tell one of your caregivers what you are going through. They love you and they will walk through any valley with you, but you have to tell them what's happening. By communicating with others, you will know you are not alone, and this will bring a ray of light into the darkness of addiction. I bet if we really knew the truth, there'd be a lot of people in your same predicament. If those in this situation could only tell someone, I know they would find tangible help. Could the cause of this depression be my use of illegal drugs? Here's another kind of no-brainer when it comes to a possible cause of depression. The use of meth, cocaine, heroin, all of these will mess with your mental health. I'm sure you agree. If you are doing these drugs, get some help, please. The end of this road is not pretty or happy in any way. Would I be right in assuming that you've tried to help yourself more than once, but have failed every time? You're not a terrible person because you are addicted to these drugs. Like every single human being, you're just in need of reconciliation with your maker. Addiction is a wicked slave master, and the only way out of this bondage is through calling upon your Creator, God. You are a valuable creation of God. You are not a lost cause. You can be useful to your family, friends, and society once again, but you need to get up and try to break this cycle of addiction. Call out to God in your desperation. He will hear you, and He wants to help you. Then allow Him to lead you to people that He has ordained to help you. Call someone whom you know has beat this already, or call a Christian friend or minister that you can trust. I know it's hard to reach out, but freedom is next to impossible on your own. And when people come to help you, don't refuse their help. Could it be that God sent them in response to your prayer? You are worth every effort. Just hold on. Could the cause of this depression be side effects from legal drugs? Prescribed medication. Then there's the old side effects of prescription drugs dilemma. Sure, sometimes we're on the wrong blood pressure medicine or too much of something, or one drug may be reacting with another drug we're taking. There are so many reasons why someone may be depressed because of prescription drugs that we would be here for 25 days trying to cover them. Every body is different. Have a personal conversation with your doctor. What works for someone else may not be working for you. It's your life. Do some research and don't be intimidated or afraid to make suggestions. Make sure your doctor understands that the possible side effects are ruining your mental stability. Good doctors want to help. That's why many of them became doctors in the first place. Try to work together to find a solution. Your mental health could depend on it. Could the cause of this depression be psychological? Psychological, emotional. Have you had a tragedy occur in your life recently, such as a death in the family, a breakup of relationship, or a physical limitation caused by an accident? I think we can all agree that life is hard, and those events listed above can be real reasons for grief and sadness for sure. Depression isn't always mysterious or for no reason. Many times something has actually happened that has altered a person's life in such a way that they get sad and will even get to the point of despairing of life. Sometimes it's helpful to figure out how you personally tick to determine what triggers are contributing to your present depression or anxiety. This is actually normal for human beings. God made us with feelings and emotions. If someone doesn't react with sadness to a sad event, someone who has no conscience, no empathy, I think we call them a psychopath. The thing is, we were created to grieve, to be sad, to get angry, to be happy, to be excited, etc. The problem comes in when these emotions start to control us. Is it possible that we have never learned to find our way out of these emotions that were caused by the tragedy and that we're living in a mysterious depression today because of it? A word about psychological drugs. Since there is no actual test to measure anything inside your mind, only the chemicals in the brain, when it comes to wholly man-made drugs to treat the mind, we should be very careful. We know some of these psychological drugs can cause terrible and undesirable side effects that are, ironically, the exact thing we are trying to prevent, that is, anxiety, depression, and suicide. If the side effect of a drug is suicidal thoughts, should we really take it? In my opinion, these psych drugs should be used sparingly and as a last resort. In rare cases, perhaps these drugs can help people, especially in the short term, to get through an immediate crisis. Of course, I'm not a doctor, nor do I play one on TV, but in my interviews of those who had lost a loved one to suicide, about 70% of the people who took their lives were on antidepressants antipsychotics or anti-anxiety medication. I'm not saying the medication was 70% to blame, but my findings are interesting. With such a high failure rate, wouldn't we want to be a little more cautious in our dispensing of such drugs? I am not suggesting that anyone should go off his or her meds cold turkey. I am suggesting, however, that people who are on these medications consider alternative options slowly. As mentioned earlier, there may be other causes for the depression or anxiety and also less drastic treatments available. Could this depression be caused by grief? See Part 2 to the grieving. Could the cause of this depression be ongoing abuse? If you are being abused, please find a way to tell someone. It seems to me that a common element in any case of abuse is intimidation. The threats of bodily harm by your abuser to you or to those you love are lies designed to silence you. As long as you are silent about being abused, the abuser is protected from being exposed. This pain you are experiencing could be the cause of depression. Please involve someone so that you can receive help. Could the cause of this depression be historical? What? Okay, let me explain that one. Many folks I interviewed for this book who have attempted suicide have had horrendous childhoods. They have been abused in every way imaginable, abandoned, unwanted, defenseless, and confused in a plethora of ways as children. Maybe you have been too. Some people have had a great childhood but will end up in abusive relationships, be violated, or witness a terrible event as adults. All of these experiences have the potential to leave a lasting residue on a person, which can manifest as anger, insecurity, fear, distrust, unfaithfulness, unforgiveness, bitterness, and more. The psychological community has labeled these as various disorders. They are right. They are disorders, but genuine healing does exist through true forgiveness. It begins when the offended person releases the offender, at least in his or her mind. Letting the criminal go, in our minds, sets us free to live life without the residue of the past, which can manifest itself as mental illness in the future. I know that forgiving a person who has abused you flies in the face of all logic and justice, but it does work. It's not easy, but forgiving others is an effective means of bringing real emotional healing to the one who forgives. Depression and torment as a result of not forgiving others. There's a story that Jesus told in Matthew 18 about a king who had forgiven one of his servants millions of dollars. Because the servant had no way of repaying his debt to the king, he fell on his knees and begged the king to have patience with him until he could repay the debt. He wasn't asking for forgiveness of the entire amount he owed, just some time to pay it. It would have taken him about 200,000 years to pay his debt. Impossible. Amazingly, the king felt compassion and forgave him the entire debt. What do you think the newly forgiven servant did after receiving such a great gift? Well, he immediately went out and found one of his fellow servants who owed him a few $1,000s. He yelled at him, "Pay me back what you owe me, or I will throw you into jail." The fellow servant fell down before him and begged him to forgive him, give him some time to pay. It would have taken him about 100 days to pay him back. The wicked servant began to choke him, got the cops, and had the guy thrown into jail. When the king heard the story, he was furious, and this is what he said. "You wicked slave, I forgave you all that debt because you pleaded with me. Should you not also have had mercy on your fellow slave in the same way that I had mercy on you?" And his lord, moved with anger, handed him over to the torturers until he should repay all that was owed him. Jesus says, "My heavenly Father will also do the same to you if each of you does not forgive his brother or sister from your heart." Matthew 18:32-35. What? A loving God will turn us over to the torturers if we don't forgive others? Did I read that right? Yup. The consequence of unforgiveness will feel like torture to us. It will not only affect our minds through constant anxiety, but it can begin to eat away at our bodies, causing all manner of physical dysfunction. You see, in God's kingdom, it's literally impossible to repay what God has done for us. Because God has forgiven us a debt that we could never pay, not in a million years, how dare we go out and demand any debt be repaid to us? Forgiveness is the key here. Once we experience it from God, we should be more apt to forgive others' sins against us, no matter how bad they are. However, if you haven't yet asked the King, God, to forgive you, you should do that first. Without his forgiveness, it's not even possible to forgive others. Now you may be asking, Could this depression that I'm experiencing today be caused by something in my past that I have not forgiven someone for? It sure can. A few more things about forgiveness. It's not as complicated or as hard as we sometimes make it. Part of forgiving is accepting the fact that people who don't know God don't know what they are doing. Jesus said this while he was on the cross. Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. Luke 23:24. Forgiveness is also not forgetting what's been done to us. It's just letting go of the offenders in our minds and hearts, with the understanding that God is the ultimate righteous judge who will settle that account with them on our behalf. Forgiveness is just transferring our right to judge because of a wrong done to us into the very capable hands of the only one who can give them exactly what they deserve. In the meantime, through forgiving those who have hurt us, we are setting ourselves free from the tormentors. You might want to try this and see if it works. Those lies that keep replaying in my head. Every single one of the people I interviewed who had attempted suicide said they felt worthless because a teacher, a parent, a peer, a sibling, and even church people had said horrible things to them. Things like, you'll never amount to anything, and you're a loser, nobody wants you around, and even, why don't you just die? The world would be a better place without you. Do you feel the power in those words? I even hesitated to write them. Maybe you've heard them. Maybe you've said them. Either way, those evil declarations are seeds that grow up to become trees of despair, rage, and death, and they come straight from the devil himself. It's highly possible that those lies could be the cause of the depression you are now experiencing. Destroy them by giving them to Jesus, and then replace them with truthful, life-giving phrases. Speak life. Some of us may be depressed or obsessed with death because we're allowing those phrases to play and replay in our minds. Words have power. The Bible says, death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. Proverbs 18:21. So you see that the wisest man in the world, Solomon, who penned Proverbs, makes it clear. We all need to heed this truth. When we speak to our kids, our friends, family, or complete strangers, let's speak life. Do you think the world would be a happier, healthier place if we did? Could the cause of this depression be secret sin? If you've sinned, don't keep it in. Sometimes people are doing something wrong, but no one on the earth knows about it. They are so filled with shame that they can't tell anyone. The secret sin will eventually eat a person alive. When I was a child, I did something wrong. I didn't tell anyone because I knew I would get into trouble. That secret sin ended up ruining a good portion of the next few months of my young life. Out of that experience was born my very first thought of suicide. I simply could not see another way out. The right solution? The solution is to confess that secret. I suppose that's why people go to counselors and psychologists or even priests. But you don't have to go to a professional to confess a sin. Through his death on the cross, Jesus made it possible for us to go straight to God. Even people in the Bible were guilty of secret sin. Through a series of sins and cover-ups, David, the king of Israel, committed adultery and murder. It was a secret to people, but no sin is hidden from God. Here's what King David had to say about holding on to secret sin. When I kept silent about my sin, my body wasted away through my groaning all day long. For day and night your hand was heavy upon me. My vitality was drained away as with the fever heat of summer. Do you see depression described here? It sucks the life right out of a person, and it actually has adverse effects on the physical body as well as the mind. But look what happened after he confessed his sin to God. I acknowledged my sin to you, and my iniquity I did not hide. I said, I will confess my transgressions to the Lord, and you forgave the guilt of my sin. Wow. Do you see how hiding sin brings depression, but confessing it brings forgiveness and freedom? King David goes on to serve the Lord faithfully for the rest of his life. We have a great treasure in the book of Psalms that David wrote out of his relationship with God. There's also a time to confess our sins to other people after we confess to God. This confession of our sins to one another, we are told in James 5:16, will bring healing to the offender. Could the cause of this depression be paternal? Now I'm just making stuff up. I used to say, well, I'm not maternal because I'm not great with kids, but I love my pets. I guess that makes me paternal. Have you considered getting a dog? Prison can be a place where a person could lose all hope, especially if someone has a life sentence. But even behind bars, prisoners are finding joy again. There are experimental programs that bring rescue dogs into the prisons so that they can be trained by the prisoners. Quote, behind the walls of correctional institutions, inmates find a renewed sense of purpose through working with injured and rescued animals. These pet training programs are working. They are restoring a sense of humanity to the most violent of criminals. These people are learning to be gentle again, to exercise love and to care for something that cannot care for itself. These throwaways of society have a purpose again. These broken and damaged human beings are being rehabilitated in the process of caring for those unwanted and abandoned animals. God made pets for us to enjoy. I also think he may have given them to us for our healing. Animals can produce real-life mental health in the lives of hurting and happy people alike. Could this depression be caused, at least in part, by the company I keep? We've all been around negative people, complaining about everything under the sun, ungrateful, and often speaking badly about other people. They're like Winnie the Pooh's sidekick, Eeyore, like some kind of mental anchor. They can drag us down. I'm not saying you should abandon your negative friends, just maybe taper off a little on the time you spend in their presence. It might help you not to be negative, anxious, or even depressed. On the other hand, if you are the negative one, may I suggest you try to change? There's an old hymn that goes like this. Count your blessings, name them one by one. No matter how bad we think we may have it, there's always something to be thankful for, right? Counting our blessings can actually lead to less negativity, which could result in less depression. A thankful person is a happy person. Try speaking your blessings out loud. As we saw earlier in regard to our words, it behooves us to speak positively, if only because we will end up eating our words. Those who love it, the tongue, will eat its fruit. Words, Proverbs 18:21. The company I'm talking about is not just flesh and blood people we hang around with. It's also the ideas on radio, TV, music, websites, and other things that we fill our time and minds with. I've cut down immensely on the time I spend watching TV because it just wasn't helping me. If we want to be happy, we have to start surrounding ourselves with those things that are good for us. Speaking of music, music can either be a great help to our mental health or it can be a tool to gravely compromise it. When I was a teenager, music was one of the most powerful influences in my life. I would listen to the saddest songs I could find and wonder why I was so sad. Some people say that they don't listen to the words and songs, but they only listen because they like the music. Don't be deceived. If you're listening to the music, the lyrics are being planted in your heart at the same time. Those seeds, words, will produce fruit. It may take a while, but what we listen to, watch, and allow into our minds will shape us into its own image. Music can be influential. Case in point, my love for America. No one in my family has ever been engaged in active combat. Yet I have this overwhelming love for this country and for the soldiers who fight for her. Why am I so patriotic, I wondered. After some thought, I traced my patriotism back to my days in the 4th grade. It was 1976, bicentennial year. That year in school, we learned just about every patriotic song about America that was ever written. At the end of the year, we put on a musical program to celebrate America's 200th anniversary. Is it possible that musical experience could have influenced my patriotism? I'm pretty sure it did. Music can be a powerful antidepressant. The day I met Jesus was the day I started to listen to Christian music exclusively. Because music had been such a powerful tool in my life for evil and had fed my depression, I had to make a solid decision regarding what kind of music I would allow into my mind and heart. I know this, all music is powerful. It isn't just what we hear on the surface. There are messages through the lyrics attached to the music that give the songs the power to evoke emotion. Music is a gift or it can be a curse, depending upon what its message is. Personally, I would rather listen to songs that glorify God so that I can grow in my faith. Life is hard enough without sabotaging myself with negative messages. Music that exalts Jesus also keeps the atmosphere around me positive and uplifting. The lyrics in Christian music encourage me to keep walking in the right direction, to keep my eyes on Jesus, and to focus on the things of God. There's enough bad news in the world. I might as well fill my own space with good news, right? For me, Christian music is a powerful antidepressant. There's a lot of great Christian music out there, but if you don't know where to start, here are 2 artists that I would highly recommend. Toby Mac, Christian hip-hop, especially his CD called This Is Not a Test, and Big D and the Good News Blues. Contact me at dhasbigd@gmail.com if you want this music. I have personal connections. Could the cause of this depression be that I have set no goals? I guess I'm never as depressed as when I have no plans for the future. In any dictionary, the meaning of the word hope is to have expectation. Hope doesn't mean to wish, though our society has certainly diminished the word. If we are filled with hope, then we are filled with expectation of something in the future. People who are hopeless will contemplate suicide because they have no expectation of the future. That's why goals are vitally important in our battle with depression. As in football or soccer, the teams must get goals or touchdowns in order to win the game. When we set and reach goals in our lives, they can help us achieve the bigger plan of a lifestyle of winning, which translates into living with purpose. Reaching goals gives us great encouragement to carry on. But if we don't set any goals, if we have no plans, then we have nothing to shoot for. We will have no expectation for the future. We will be hopeless. At that point, we tend to give up. If you are depressed, may I suggest you set some realistic goals for your day, your week, your month, in order to win the game? Goals and a plan just may be part of a lifeline you need to get out of the pit of depression. Goals equal hope. Hope equals purpose. Purpose equals a reason to live. Could the cause of this depression be that I am an artist? See part 3. There are women, there are men, and then there are artists. And finally, could the cause of this depression be spiritual? The spiritual elephant in the room, the mastermind behind suicide. It seems that in most circles where people talk about the prevention of suicide, they leave out the one invisible yet crucial player in this deadly scenario, and that is the devil. Chalk him up to imaginary religious foolishness if you want to, but that doesn't make him any less real or effective. Jesus made it clear that the devil is our enemy. The devil's mission is mapped out for us in John 10:10. Jesus said, "The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy." What did Jesus mean by steal, kill, and destroy? I don't think Jesus was talking about the devil actually having the authority to kill us because he is a created angel and not God. But I do believe he can torment us to the point that we become so miserable that we might want to die. The devil can't take our lives, so he tries to steal the quality of our lives. Through his lies and illusions, the devil tries to kill our hope for a future. And if we don't have a vision for the future, if we don't have hope, expectation, then we will live a life of defeat and hopelessness. And finally, the devil wants to destroy into 1,000,000 pieces any semblance of a life of faith in God. The devil wants to lie to us and make us believe we're poor, but Jesus tells us the truth so that we can be rich in the things of God. Jesus said, "I came that they may have life and have it abundantly." John 10:10. Tell me, who's stronger, God or the devil? Let me answer that. God is stronger and greater and loves us more than we could even fathom. I encourage you to call out to him for help to determine what is causing your depression. He will answer you if you seek him. He's done it for me. Why wouldn't he do it for you? You don't know how I feel. We've all heard that statement before. As a former depressed and suicidal person, I've said that exact statement, and I've watched my relatives at a total loss as to how to help me. Because I have experience on this end, I would like to talk to those of you who have depression now and those of you who are suicidal. I would like to speak to you in a straightforward way. No, others don't know how we feel. How can they know how we feel? We don't communicate. We isolate. We push them away. I know. It's all part of the dysfunction that happens inside of a person who is depressed. How can we describe what we are feeling if we can't understand it ourselves? That being said, I would like you to consider something. You may not have thought of this before or lately, but have you considered that you don't know how they feel on the other end? I think I can name how they feel in one word: helpless. These people who love you are trying desperately to help you, but always to no avail. When they do something extreme like take you to a rehab program or the things that you have said to them. After a long time of not knowing how to help, eventually even the best of them crumbles. They lose heart. You and I know how it feels to be helpless and hopeless. What did we do? Well, we got worn out and wanted to give up. However, their giving up doesn't look like our giving up. Their brokenness could look like anger or abandonment from our end. They can't take the helpless feeling anymore. Maybe they're so tired of failing when it comes to helping you that for the sake of their own sanity, they leave or stop listening. One of the worst things we can do is to say, I'm going to take myself out of the equation so that they don't have to feel responsible for me anymore, so that they can get on with their lives without me holding them back. I will help my loved ones by killing myself. I'll leave them a note assuring them that my suicide was not their fault. Okay, let me say that that is the worst possible idea in the world. Your death will most likely do the exact opposite of what you are trying to do. Instead of peace, your absence through suicide will cause chaos. Instead of letting them off the hook, your death will snag them forever. The note probably won't bring peace to them either. One mom that I interviewed had memorized the note from her son. Memorized it. From what I could discern, that note actually became an anchor that held her back from living her own life to the fullest. May I make one more practical suggestion that could actually help to avoid such devastation? Tell those who are trying to help you that you appreciate their concern. But don't just tell them. Force yourself to let them help you by taking you out to lunch or coffee once in a while. Tell them how you're feeling instead of making them try to guess. Ask them to lunch. Let them in a little and stop pushing them away. Thank them. Tell them when they've said something that's helped you. Send them a card every now and then. I know that's next to impossible, but sometimes the way out of our own pit is to show appreciation and help someone else to know that while they may feel helpless, they are not useless. They are not failures. These family members and friends have feelings too. They aren't robots, and we aren't the only ones who feel bad. I know you know all this. Sometimes the way we treat those who are trying to help us drives us deeper into depression because we know we're hurting them. I know, but if you always isolate, try to do something different next time. And call someone. Maybe they will need to talk to you that day. Maybe you could actually help them. Boy, I hope I'm not making you mad, but if it changes your future in a positive way, then I'll be glad to take the hit. I'll do my best to put into words how we feel in the next part of the book that's written to those who truly may not understand this depression suicidal issue, what we're dying to tell you. And that concludes the second night of our reading. And